Marina Caldwell, her ex-boyfriend Ethan Rhodes, and her trusted co-worker Daniel Harper were all part of a life that seemed ordinary. But one decision would turn their world upside down, leading to betrayal, secrets, and a murder no one saw coming. Please subscribe for daily new update of crime story and watch till end. Marina Caldwell was 32 years old when she decided her life needed a hard reset. She lived in a narrow townhouse on the edge of a quiet Oregon suburb, a place where evenings were usually silent and streets emptied early. From the outside, her life looked stable. She had a steady job in medical billing, paid her rent on time, and kept her home clean and organized. But behind closed doors, the last year had drained her emotionally. Her relationship had slowly turned controlling, exhausting, and unpredictable. Small arguments became constant tension, and the comfort she once felt disappeared completely. The decision to kick her boyfriend out did not happen suddenly. It was the result of many sleepless nights and moments when she felt like she was losing herself. That evening, the air inside the house felt heavy as she gathered the courage to end things for good. When he finally left, taking only a few belongings, Marina locked the door and leaned against it, feeling a mix of fear and relief. The house felt unfamiliar without another presence, but it also felt safer. For the first time in months, she could breathe without worrying about someone else's mood. That night, Marina walked through each room, turning on lamps instead of the overhead lights. The soft glow made the house feel calmer. She cleaned the kitchen even though it was already tidy, as if trying to erase the past from every surface. She washed the same mug twice and rearranged items that did not need moving. These small actions helped her feel in control again. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows, matching the slow rhythm of her thoughts. Marina believed she had closed a painful chapter of her life. She planned to focus on work, save money, and maybe move closer to her sister in the future. She wrote a short list in her notebook with simple goals like sleeping better and spending less time on her phone. She avoided thinking about what could go wrong. Instead, she focused on what she had already survived. Before going to bed, she checked the locks twice, something she had never done before. The silence felt louder than usual, but she told herself it was normal after a breakup. She reminded herself that independence sometimes feels lonely at first. As she turned off the lights, she felt a cautious sense of hope. She believed the danger had left with the person she asked to leave. What Marina did not know was that this moment of relief would be short-lived. The decision she thought would protect her had quietly shifted events into motion. While she believed she was finally alone and safe, unseen forces were already forming around her life. That peaceful night, meant to mark a new beginning, would later be remembered as the calm before everything fell apart. The days following the breakup moved slowly for Marina, as if time itself had changed pace. She returned to her daily routine, waking early, driving the same route to work, and sitting at her desk under harsh office lighting. On the surface, everything looked normal. Inside, her body stayed tense, waiting for something she could not name. She told herself this was just the aftershock of ending a long relationship, a natural response to stress. Still, a quiet unease followed her everywhere. Small things began to bother her. Her phone battery, which usually lasted all day, now drained by early afternoon even when she barely used it. Notifications appeared and disappeared without explanation. Once, while scrolling, her screen flashed briefly before returning to normal. Marina blamed outdated software and promised herself she would update it later. She did not consider the possibility that someone else might be watching. At night, the sense of discomfort grew stronger. A motion-activated security light near her front door turned on at odd hours. When she looked through the window, the yard was empty. No animals, no passing cars, no wind strong enough to trigger it. This happened more than once. Marina reset the light and checked the sensitivity settings, convincing herself it was faulty. She did not want to call the landlord and appear paranoid. Sleep became difficult. She woke up suddenly, feeling alert without knowing why. The house creaked in ways she had never noticed before. Pipes knocked softly, and the hum of the refrigerator sounded louder in the dark. She kept the television on low volume to avoid complete silence. Even familiar sounds no longer felt comforting. Her home, once a place of rest, now felt unpredictable. At work, Marina noticed changes there too. Files on her computer took longer to load. Her login history showed activity at times she knew she was not at her desk. She assumed the system was glitchy, something common in the office. Still, she started writing down dates and times in a small notebook, just in case. She had learned over the years that trusting instincts mattered, even when there was no clear proof. Marina withdrew from social media and stopped sharing details about her life. She did not want questions, opinions, or attention. She told a coworker she was just tired and needed space. Deep down, she felt safer being invisible. She avoided walking outside after dark and parked closer to her front door whenever possible. These changes felt logical, not dramatic, to her. Despite all of this, Marina never imagined real danger. She believed problems announced themselves loudly, with clear threats and obvious signs. What she was experiencing felt too subtle to be serious. She convinced herself that stress was exaggerating everything. Each day she promised that things would settle soon. What Marina did not realize was that these warning signs were not random. They were pieces of a pattern forming around her, slowly and quietly. While she tried to regain control of her life, someone else was already stepping closer, leaving no footprints but changing her world in ways she would never get the chance to fully understand. The rain started before midnight and continued without pause, washing the streets until they shone under the weak glow of streetlights. Marina spent that evening at home, moving slowly from room to room as if she had nowhere specific to be. She heated a simple dinner, barely tasting it, and left the dishes soaking in the sink. The sense of unease she had felt all week settled heavily in her chest, though nothing had actually happened. She checked her phone once more before setting it down, noticing the battery was already low again. As the night grew quieter, Marina followed her usual routine. She locked the doors, pulled the curtains closed, and turned off most of the lights. The security light outside flicked on briefly, then off. She noticed it, but chose not to look too closely. She told herself that fear fed on attention. Eventually, she went to bed, hoping sleep would quiet her thoughts. Sometime during the night, something changed. The house remained intact, undisturbed to the casual eye, yet a silent intrusion occurred without broken glass or forced locks. Whatever happened left no immediate noise for neighbors to hear and no obvious chaos behind. By morning, the rain had stopped, and the world outside looked ordinary again. When Marina did not arrive at work, her absence raised concern. She had never missed a day without notice. Calls went unanswered, and messages remained unread. By evening, worry turned serious. A request was made for a welfare check, something routine but heavy with possibility. Police arrived just after sunset. The townhouse looked calm from the outside. Lights were off, curtains drawn. There were no signs of struggle at the entrance. Inside, the air felt still. The rooms were neat, almost untouched, as if time had paused. In the kitchen, Marina was found on the floor. Her life had ended there, quietly and suddenly. Investigators immediately noticed what was missing rather than what was present. There were no broken items, no overturned furniture. Her purse was still there. Her keys were in their usual place. The scene did not suggest panic or resistance. It suggested familiarity. Someone had been inside who did not need to force their way in. As officers moved through the house, they documented every detail. The soaked dishes in the sink, the open notebook on the table, the phone resting face down, completely drained. Nothing appeared random. Everything felt deliberate, controlled. The absence of obvious violence made the discovery more unsettling. Word of Marina's death spread quickly. Neighbors were shocked, struggling to connect the quiet woman they barely knew with such a sudden end. To the public, the situation seemed confusing. A young woman found dead in her own home, with no clear reason why. For investigators, however, one thing was already clear. This was not an accident. It was not a burglary gone wrong. This was a targeted act, planned carefully enough to leave more questions than answers. And somewhere within the calm appearance of that small townhouse, the truth was hiding, waiting to be uncovered. The investigation moved quickly once Marina's identity and recent history were reviewed. One detail stood out immediately and pulled attention in a single direction. Only days before her death, Marina had ended a long and difficult relationship. Records confirmed that her boyfriend had been living with her until very recently. To detectives, this timing felt too close to ignore. Cases like this often followed a familiar pattern, and pressure began building to act fast. Police reviewed reports from neighbors and co-workers. Some recalled hearing raised voices weeks earlier, though no one could describe clear threats. Others mentioned seeing the boyfriend come and go at odd hours during the relationship. These details, while vague, were enough to shape a narrative. Investigators brought him in for questioning within 48 hours of discovering the body. His background added weight to suspicion. Past complaints showed a history of aggressive behavior, though nothing that had led to serious charges. He appeared nervous during questioning, offering explanations that sounded rehearsed. He admitted he was angry about being forced to leave the house, but denied returning after that night. When asked about his whereabouts during the rainstorm, his timeline had gaps. He could not clearly account for several hours. Media outlets quickly picked up the story. Headlines focused on the breakup and painted a picture of jealousy and revenge. The public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Online discussions labeled the case as obvious, leaving little room for doubt. To many, Marina's death already felt solved. Despite the growing pressure, some detectives felt uneasy. The evidence did not fully match the story being told. There were no signs of a violent confrontation, no defensive injuries, no damage inside the house. Crimes driven by sudden rage often left chaos behind, but Marina's home remained carefully untouched. This inconsistency lingered in the background, quietly bothering those closest to the case. Still, the ex-boyfriend remained the main focus. His phone records placed him in the same general area that night, though not directly at the townhouse. Investigators considered the possibility of him using a spare key or being let inside. They examined his vehicle for traces, but found nothing conclusive. Lack of physical evidence did not immediately remove suspicion, especially with emotions involved. As days passed, detectives reconstructed Marina's final week. They reviewed her messages, emails, and call logs. Surprisingly, there were no desperate texts, no angry exchanges, no signs of recent contact between her and her former partner. This absence raised quiet questions. If the motive was emotional, why was there no digital trail? Still, momentum carried the investigation forward in the same direction. Public expectation, media attention, and familiar case patterns made it difficult to slow down. The ex-boyfriend's life unraveled quickly as suspicion followed him everywhere. Behind the scenes, however, a smaller group of investigators continued to dig deeper. They believed the truth might be less obvious and far more unsettling. While everyone else looked at the loudest suspect, they wondered if the real danger had come from somewhere Marina never expected. As the investigation continued, attention slowly shifted away from personal relationships and toward Marina's daily life. Detectives began examining her work history, something initially treated as routine. Marina worked in medical billing, a field that required handling sensitive information and strict system access. At first glance, her job seemed unrelated to her death, but a closer look revealed details that did not fit. Technology specialists were asked to review Marina's work computer and server logs from her office. What they found was unusual. Her login credentials had been used late at night on multiple occasions, including times when security cameras showed she was not in the building. The access patterns were careful, not rushed, suggesting someone who understood the system well. This discovery changed the tone of the investigation. Marina had not ignored these issues. Weeks before her death, she had reported concerns to her supervisor. She mentioned strange activity tied to her account and expressed discomfort, but she did not file a formal complaint. Instead, she asked for time to review things quietly. She did not want to cause trouble or accuse the wrong person. This cautious approach reflected her personality, thoughtful and reserved. Detectives searched Marina's personal laptop and found encrypted folders. With the help of forensic analysts, they recovered spreadsheets and screenshots documenting unauthorized data access. These files showed patterns of patient records being copied and exported. The amount of information involved suggested more than curiosity. It pointed to organized data theft. The deeper investigators went, the more they realized Marina had placed herself in a dangerous position without fully understanding it. The data she tracked could expose someone to serious criminal charges. Whoever was responsible would have strong motivation to stop her from speaking up. This possibility introduced an entirely new motive, one far more calculated than jealousy or anger. Meanwhile, the focus on the ex-boyfriend began to weaken quietly. There was still no physical evidence connecting him to the crime scene. Phone records alone were not enough. Detectives started to see Marina's murder not as an emotional explosion, but as a controlled act meant to eliminate a risk. Investigators also noticed that the files Marina collected stopped abruptly 2 days before her death. It appeared she had completed her work and was preparing to act. Calendar entries hinted at a private meeting scheduled for the following week. The purpose of that meeting was never written down, but its timing raised alarms. This discovery reframed Marina's final days. She was not simply a woman trying to recover from a breakup. She was someone carrying dangerous knowledge, walking through her routine while unknowingly becoming a target. The warning signs she experienced at home and work now appeared connected, not random. As this new narrative took shape, detectives understood they were dealing with someone patient, careful, and close enough to Marina's life to monitor her movements. The case grew darker, and the true reason for her death began to emerge from the shadows, pointing toward a threat Marina never saw coming. With this new direction, investigators began looking closely at the people Marina interacted with every day. They reviewed staff lists, access levels, and work schedules at her office. One name surfaced repeatedly in system logs, always just outside normal working hours. This person held a senior position, had advanced access privileges, and was known for staying late. At first, nothing about him seemed suspicious. He was respected, experienced, and trusted by management. That trust made him almost invisible. Detectives compared Marina's records with internal audit reports from another state. What they found was alarming. The same employee had once worked at a different medical firm where patient data had gone missing under similar circumstances. That case had never led to charges due to lack of direct evidence. The pattern, however, was nearly identical. Late-night access, clean digital trails, blame quietly shifted to system errors. As investigators built a timeline, they realized Marina's careful notes lined up perfectly with the suspected data thefts. She had unknowingly done what others had failed to do. By tracking access times and file movements, she created a silent map of criminal activity. She did not confront anyone. She simply documented everything, planning to hand it over safely. Security footage from the area around Marina's home was reviewed again, this time with fresh eyes. One camera captured a vehicle driving slowly past her townhouse the night she died. Earlier, it had been dismissed as unrelated. Now, investigators enhanced the footage and matched the car to a vehicle registered to the same coworker. The image was blurry, but the timing was exact. The most disturbing detail came from Marina's house itself. Officers found no forced entry because none was needed. Marina kept a spare key hidden outside for emergencies. Only a few people knew where it was. Among them was this coworker who had once helped her when she locked herself out months earlier. At the time, it seemed harmless. Digital forensic teams recovered fragments of deleted data from Marina's cloud storage. She had backed up her files shortly before her death, possibly as a precaution. These backups confirmed she planned to report the theft. Her notes were organized, dated, and complete. They showed awareness of risk, but not fear. She trusted the system would protect her. When confronted with this evidence, the coworker's story began to unravel. His movements that night could not be fully explained. His computer showed traces of remote file deletion attempts shortly after Marina's death. The calm, professional image he maintained for years started to crack under scrutiny. Investigators now understood the full picture. Marina had not been killed in anger or passion. She had been silenced. The person responsible had used familiarity, access, and patience to remove a threat without drawing attention. What began as a quiet office crime had escalated into something irreversible, all because Marina chose to do the right thing. The breakthrough came slowly, as detectives pieced together the final movements of Marina's last hours. Forensic experts focused on her digital footprint, recovering deleted files from the cloud backup she had set up just days earlier. Among them were spreadsheets, screenshots, and notes meticulously detailing unauthorized access to sensitive medical records. Each file painted a clearer picture. Marina had uncovered evidence that could have led to serious legal consequences for someone in a position of authority at her workplace. The realization shocked investigators. Her death was no longer a crime of passion. It was a calculated effort to silence her before she could report the wrongdoing. Investigators then reviewed Marina's home again, this time searching for anything that could indicate how the intruder gained access. No windows were broken, doors were locked. The house appeared undisturbed, as if nothing had happened. But careful inspection revealed a subtle clue: the spare key Marina kept hidden outside. It was exactly where it had been months earlier, but investigators now understood its significance. Whoever had killed Marina had to know about it, and that knowledge immediately narrowed the list of suspects. The senior co-worker, once respected and seemingly above suspicion, became the focus of the investigation. He had knowledge of Marina's routines, access to her workplace systems, and familiarity with her home. His past history of similar unauthorized access in another state added weight to the case. Detectives secured a warrant to search his vehicle and home, looking for evidence linking him directly to Marina's death. In his computer, they discovered traces of files that matched those Marina had collected, confirming attempts to erase evidence. The timeline of the night Marina died became critical. Security footage, initially thought to be inconclusive, was enhanced. The images revealed a vehicle matching the co-worker, parked near Marina's townhouse. It remained there for a period consistent with the time investigators estimated the murder occurred. The level of precision and patience implied planning rather than impulse. This was a crime executed with forethought and meticulous care. During the search of his residence, investigators discovered items that linked him to Marina's home without force. A glove, a tool for unlocking doors, and fingerprints on items in the house matched evidence found at the scene. Combined with the digital records, this created a clear chain connecting him to the crime. Everything fit the pattern Marina had unknowingly documented: access, observation, and deletion of files to cover tracks. Once confronted with the evidence, the co-worker's initial denials could not withstand scrutiny. Investigators laid out the timeline, the digital traces, the security footage, and the physical evidence. Each point reinforced the same conclusion: Marina's death was premeditated. She had been targeted because she had gathered information that could expose criminal activity. Her intentions to report it had made her a threat, and the person she trusted most in her professional life had acted to eliminate it. With his arrest, the case shifted from uncertainty to clarity. Marina Caldwell's final days were no longer a mysterious tragedy. They became a cautionary story about trust, vigilance, and the dangerous consequences of uncovering truths some people are willing to kill to hide. The investigation confirmed that her courage in documenting wrongdoing had ultimately cost her life, but it also ensured that justice could follow even after her death. Marina Caldwell's story ended with a mix of sorrow and hardened clarity. Her funeral was attended by friends, family, and co-workers who remembered her as diligent, kind, and cautious, yet independent. The reality of her death, the betrayal by someone she had trusted professionally, shocked everyone who knew her. People struggled to reconcile the calm, organized woman they knew with the calculated act that had ended her life. For many, it was a reminder that danger often hides behind familiar faces, quietly waiting for the right moment. The investigation that led to her co-worker's arrest brought relief to some, but it did not erase the sense of loss. Prosecutors presented detailed evidence in court: digital logs showing unauthorized access, deleted files recovered from cloud storage, security footage placing him near Marina's home, and physical traces inside the townhouse that connected him directly to the crime. The meticulous planning and execution made the case particularly chilling. This was not an act of passion or impulsive violence. It was deliberate and calculated, aimed at protecting a secret rather than expressing anger. Media coverage framed Marina as a symbol of courage and diligence. Articles highlighted how she had documented suspicious activity at work and taken careful steps to ensure the truth could be revealed. Her attention to detail, once considered unremarkable, became the key to uncovering the crime. The public began to see her not just as a victim, but as someone whose quiet determination helped expose wrongdoing, even at the cost of her own safety. The trial drew attention to workplace security and the vulnerabilities in systems that rely heavily on trust. Experts discussed how access privileges, spare keys, and familiarity could be exploited by those with bad intentions. Marina's story became a case study in the importance of vigilance, both in digital environments and personal safety. Policies were reviewed, and companies began examining their own safeguards to prevent similar tragedies. In a way, Marina's efforts continued to make an impact, even after her death. For her family, the grief was overwhelming, yet there was a small measure of comfort in knowing the truth had been revealed. They spoke about her love for life, her attention to detail, and her quiet bravery in facing challenges. Friends recalled her ability to notice what others missed, her careful planning, and her dedication to doing the right thing, even when it was difficult. These memories became a source of strength as they navigated the long path of healing. Marina's death also served as a warning to those who underestimate subtle threats. While society often focuses on loud, visible dangers, the real risks can come from unexpected places: someone trusted, someone close, someone who knows routines and vulnerabilities. Her story reminded people that awareness, caution, and careful documentation are not just habits, but essential tools for protection. In the end, Marina Caldwell's life was tragically cut short, but her courage and foresight left a lasting mark. She exposed criminal activity, ensured justice was served, and highlighted the importance of vigilance in everyday life. Her story remains a sobering reminder that doing the right thing sometimes carries a high price, but it can also bring truth and justice to light. Even in death, Marina's quiet bravery continues to resonate, teaching lessons that extend far beyond her small townhouse in Oregon.